Welcome to this week's episode on living on purpose. There's absolutely no question for me, the happiest people I meet are those that are generally doing something they love and they enjoy. They are generally making use of their natural occurring strengths and their abilities and talents. And quite significantly, I would say, they're doing something that is in some way adding value to the world, adding value to their organization, adding value to humanity. Doing something, in other words, worthwhile they feel good about. When you combine these three things together, I would describe that as somebody who's living on purpose. And guess what? It makes them feel good.
So they're good at it, they're passionate about it, and the world or the organisation needs it, essentially.
Absolutely, yeah. That is how we would describe living on purpose. Since this is at the core of people feeling happy, it surely makes sense for us to spend some time working on it rather than living a life that is just kind of life is happening to us.
Yeah.
We're being proactive about making sure that it happens.
Yeah.
Particularly, we don't have a huge amount of time in this world.
And it's never too late. In fact, there's a piece of work that was done by a guy called Erik Erikson, who's a German psychoanalyst, and he describes these 7 stages. And stage 7 is the time from when we're 40 to 65. And that's when we're looking at generation versus stagnation. So, how can I contribute and meaningfully contribute to the world, in the work that I do. And then stage 8, which is beyond that age, obviously 65 plus, it's actually asking ourselves the question, did I live a meaningful life? And obviously you want the answer to be yes. And that all lies within living on purpose and all the things that you mentioned.
Yeah, that's actually quite interesting because this whole idea of chapters,
Yeah.
I picked up on that same idea in a book called Life Launch. This is a great book here called Life Launch. And they use the metaphor of chapters, that you live your life as various different chapters, chapter 1, chapter 2, and really segmenting them into different ages.
Yeah.
And, we think about it, the kind of old model, if you like, of that we were kind of taught from an early age, the old rules was, work hard, do well at school, get a good education, work really hard, get a job, work hard at that job, and then happiness comes.
Yeah.
But, what we're discovering is that is a very sort of linear, one-directional way of looking at life.
Yeah.
And life doesn't work that way. It actually goes in cycles. We go through different chapters. Let's first of all turn that model inside out and look at it from not an outside-in model, which is the old rule, but an inside-out one would be saying, well, why don't we start off with happiness? What actually makes you happy? Where do you feel you're making your best contribution? Where do you feel you're happiest? What kind of tasks and activities and work do you really love to do?
Yeah.
And when you're doing those things, do you feel most aligned to your values? So start from the inside out.
And very few people, this is the sort of cornerstone part of the Power Up program, isn't it? Working on what we call vision power.
Yeah.
And very few people, I'm quite surprised that very few people, they feel some sort of rumblings that they might want to do something different. But without the sort of structured process of thinking about those things, what do I really, really enjoy and what am I good at and what does the organisation or the world need? Very few people have done that, and they end up on a path that sometimes has been dictated externally by your parents or a careers advisor, many years ago. And the good thing is in the realization about the cycles is then that brings opportunity. Every cycle brings an opportunity. And just going back to the point about it's never too late. It's both terrifying and interesting in Oliver Burkeman's book, 4,000 Weeks. So average lifespan, I think it goes to about 76 or something like that. That's 4,000 weeks.
Isn't it?
It is frighteningly short. Yeah. And I at 53, won't share your age, but I at 53 am on week 2,776. So well over halfway. So, if you're going to start being happy, don't let another few weeks go by. Do it now.
Well, that is quite a frightening thought. I guess we've got another 15 years, I think.
Another way of looking at it, which is even more terrifying, is if you take 7 days of the week and each day represents a decade from 0 to 70. I'm sort of mid-morning on a Friday.
And I'm on a Saturday. I've only got Sunday to go. That's pretty frightening. Yeah, I do get that point around we end up building a life around circumstances which we didn't design it that way. We just sort of, one thing led to another. Well, I went to school here, happened to go to university here, met somebody there, fell in love, got a job locally, had some kids, and then suddenly you find yourself in a house on a hill in a place you don't actually really want to be, maybe even doing a job you don't want to do, but now you need the security of the income because you've got a family, maybe you've got children education potentially.
The roots get deeper and deeper.
The roots get deeper and deeper. The network gets deeper and deeper. You feel trapped. Some people would describe to us as feeling a bit trapped by their own circumstances, and they kind of put up with it. Yeah,
it's too late. It's too late to rock the boat.
Yeah, I mean, they end up doing what they feel they ought to do versus what they want to do. So it becomes this sort of ought to energy. Now think about getting up every day and doing things, well, I ought to do this, I ought to do that. And if I actually went home and suggested that I want to do something different, I'm sure friends, family, loved ones, parents say, oh, you don't want to be doing that, Martin. I mean, come on, look at your life, look what you've got. Yeah, but I'm not entirely happy.
Well,
you should be grateful for what you've got. I mean, come on. At least you've got a house and a happy partner and family and children. Be grateful for what you've got. Why do you want to do something else?
And human nature is to sort of, retreat to safety and not rock the boat. And, so this is going against what, what our psychology is designed to do.
That whole thing about the children, it's almost like, well, I'm basically, I'm prioritizing my children and my family. Imagine saying to your children 15, 16 years later, I put my life on hold. I decided to be unhappy doing something that I didn't really want to do just so that I could make you happy. I mean, not that you would say that to them, of
and
course.
And they go, thanks, see you later.
Yeah, well, they don't care, to be quite frank with you, because they always think they're number one. But the point is, would they really, if that grown-up version of that child could really understand that, would they really want you to do that? I don't think so.
And what sort of a message is that sending to the next generation about how to be happy? Life isn't all about sacrifices. Enjoy the journey, and that can start now.
Absolutely.
If you have been doing that can
it's
start
setting
now.
The key phrase, you either an example or a warning to others. I want to be an example. I want to be able to look back in life and say, actually, I did what I really felt I was here to do, and did my best work when I was doing something that I enjoy.
Yeah.
So this is this new model, this new, not non-linear method, but this new model of thinking is, let's start with happiness. Let's, decide what it is that makes you feel happy. Neil Pasricha is a great speaker, and his book, Happiness Equation, he inverts the model. He turns it around. He says, let's start with happiness, find out what makes you happy, do work that you enjoy, and obviously you can work hard at it, but doing something, it's much easier to work on something you enjoy doing. You're likely to work harder. And guess what? That will bring you success.
Yeah. Do you think that, I personally think that it is harder for people of our sort of age to do that, and takes more courage. Well, because we're further along in our careers. Yeah. I think the younger generation, they do seem to be much more focused on what makes them happy and doing things that they enjoy. And they're much more in tune to the notion of having several jobs throughout their career. It's
Definitely.
not the job for life mentality anymore.
Yeah, there's a great writer called, I think it's Charles Handy, if I remember rightly, called The Empty Raincoat. And I remember reading about him many years ago, long before this kind of become a reality. And he was talking about the portfolio worker, and that, typically people have one job and it lasts a lifetime. They're very proud of that. Whereas, new generations will have several jobs.
Yeah.
And they will feel quite comfortable with it. So I do think that we're definitely moving into a generation where they're much more comfortable with changing. But there are people might be listening to this. Potentially they're in their 40s or their late 30s or 40s or mid 40s and still hanging on to something that is less than actually fulfilling. We know because we meet them on our Power Up program, and I think that is one of the reasons they decide to join. We had one person recently say, very, very successful role. He'd done everything I talked about, the hard work thing, the education, worked his way up the organisation, only to sort of sit there and go, well, is this it? Is this what I've been working for? Is this what I've got to look forward to for another 15 years? He just felt a little bit empty, and it's only when he really started introspecting again. This is what they talk about in Life Launch, that these chapters you go through, these transitions, as you move from one chapter to the next, you start to introspect. Before that, you get that kind of rumbling, you go into the doldrums, you feel a bit dissatisfied, you turn inward, you start looking at yourself, you start thinking more deeply, and then, like the kind of catalyst stage, you start to emerge from that, and then suddenly you get into this place of a new birth, a new chapter, and it's just helping ourselves through that. That's what we really want to encourage people to do. So let's look at some of the ideas that we've got to make sure if those are the reasons why we should be doing it. And I think you made that case very clear.
So I think it's really clear, the reasons why we should do it. And if happiness comes from living more purposefully, people listening might be thinking, easy to say, but how do you actually do it?
Indeed.
So what are some of the ways that people can start the process of finding their true purpose?
And it is a good question, because that is, lots of people have dabbled with the idea of purpose, either maybe introduced to it at work, or they've watched or listened to a podcast or read a book about it. And often they're still left feeling, what is this thing? How do I get there?
Yeah.
So we created... we use a metaphor of maps. To get from A to B, it's useful to have a map of some sort. And you can always, once you've got that map, you can always change direction. You can always go, I'm going to go a little more of a scenic route. I'm going to go in a faster route. So we created these 7 maps. We're not going to cover them all in this podcast today.
But we have actually put together a handy downloadable tool that does cover all of the maps. So go to the downloads in the show notes and you'll be able to get access to that. But we are going to cover some of them.
Yeah. And certainly if you follow these maps, you'll be well on your way to understanding and discovering your purpose. So the first map is really, the first stage, if you like, is about doing a little bit of a stock check, doing a bit of an audit. What's your start point? And the way we found doing that is we use a little model called TAP.
Yep.
Which talents, achievements and passions, tap your potential kind of thing. Although we describe it as TAP, we actually think we start it in reverse and start with a P, because you can override anything when you've got enough passion. Passion drives us, it motivates us. You desire things that you enjoy and you have passion for.
It actually makes the whole exercise more enjoyable, doesn't it? Because you're excited by thinking about these things that really fuel you.
So start by writing those things down that when you think about doing them, or you've got them in your diary for the next day, you think, I'm really looking forward to that. I love doing it. So what activities bring your greatest sense of joy and excitement, enthusiasm? You have plenty of energy for it. You could do them longer than any other activity. And it might feel a bit selfish when you do that, but it's important to do this.
Yeah.
Really get those things down. And if you're struggling a bit with that, journal, just keep a journal for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And over the couple of weeks, just keep writing those things. This is a process. By the way, this is not a one-sitting event, right? We're talking about your life purpose here. So let's just get some perspective on this, that it will take you a bit of time to detect it.
And also, I think with passions as well, it's quite easy to be constrained by what you do in your current job. And obviously, if you're thinking about this, it might not be the one that gives you the most passion. Think about for me, any opportunity I get to be creative or, design something or make something look beautiful, those are the sorts of things that I particularly like doing and learning and that sort of thing. So, try not to be constrained by your current job and your current situation. That
is a very good point, because if you look through that window and you're not doing something you enjoy, you might go, I'm not really passionate about anything.
Yeah.
So, start with what are those things? If you could do them, what would they be?
And your inspiration might come outside of the work context.
Absolutely, yeah, totally. I mean, I think one of my sons, Josh, he is doing his hobby. Well, he took his lifetime hobby of gaming, and he's works in a game studio.
That's the ultimate, right?
That's the ultimate thing. Yeah, yeah. So the next thing is to then say, well, okay, what am I actually good at? Because why is that important? Well, we tend to do more of the things we're good at. They tend to bring us naturally more energy. The two do tend to go together quite naturally. But again, take off that kind of, I can't afford to brag. I don't want to feel like I'm boasting. No one's going to see this list.
Yeah,
just
do it yourself.
You don't
have to show anyone.
No.
Just put it in your book.
Just say, what do you, try to think about it like this. What do you kind of do better than most people?
Yeah.
A good test of a natural strength is, do you feel enthusiastic when you're doing it? Do you feel like you can do it for a long time? Do you feel like that when you're doing it, it actually makes you feel very confident, because it just comes fairly easy to you?
And it's the sort of thing as well, isn't it, that you get immersed in. Time passes very quickly when you're doing that thing. It's something that comes quite natural and you can absorb yourself.
Absolutely. So, and there are always things like Strength Finder 2.0. You can use those tools, other tools available that you can use to try and discover your strengths. And maybe, test them out with a few people and say, do you see me doing these things well? So that's passion and that's talents. The final one is think about achievements. What do you actually want to achieve that will be of value to you and value to the world in general?
So what would be an example of that?
Well, I guess, it could be something like, I could take my own example. I wanted to build a training company many years ago. I wanted to have my own business doing that. That is going to fulfill me, but it's also going to fulfill other people. I'm serving organizations. I'm serving people within those organizations. So that is something that I could get very, very excited about, a high sense of achievement. For others, it might be something to do with sports. It might be a chosen sport they want to achieve. They want to join a local team, a national team, who knows, represent their country. For others, it might be a vocation in life. It could be something of high service.
Or a qualification.
Yeah. And, the sense of wanting, when they think about achieving that thing, excites them. They're motivated by it. They feel good about it.
And that's a good test. If you get that little, well, for me, it's in my stomach, but if you get that little fizz of excitement, then that is a true thing.
A true test.
Yeah.
And be aware of the ought to thing coming in.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
My parents would be very happy about this. Yeah. Or my wife, my husband, my brother-in-law would be very impressed if I told him I was going to go down this route.
So-and-so's done this,
is certainly
so I
going to
flatter
my ego. Yes. This sounds really impressive. So yeah, be aware of your ego taking over versus your heart. Are you listening to your heart, or are you listening to the part of you that wants to feel good, not because it's truly intrinsic to you, but it's a flattering part of you?
Yeah.
That's very easy trap to fall into.
Where's the motivation coming from?
Yeah. And also I would say be aware that it's not coming from a place of fear. So when people go through these chapters and these transitions I spoke about earlier, often when they come out of one chapter before they go into another, when they've come out of one, and it could be forced or it could be circumstance or it could be choice, they start to get a bit panicky. Oh my God, I need to get another job. I need to make a move. I need to do something different. So they start grabbing at things because they...
But there might not be another opportunity come their way.
Well, they start coming from a place of fear.
Yeah. I was listening to something this morning, actually, which was actually the Best Friend Therapy podcast, but they were talking about uncertainty and transitions, and I loved what they said, because they were saying it's sometimes when there's a point of transition, there's almost like you've got one foot on the train and the other foot on the platform, and it's
uncomfortable.
Yeah, could be very uncomfortable. You don't want to get on the train necessarily, because the next one might go to an even better destination. But what they interestingly said is get on or get off. Don't
deliberate.
Well,
make
it's
a
very
decision.
painful if you try and stay in the middle.
Yeah.
And you can always get off at the next station. It's not necessarily the train you have to stay on for the rest of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but
and
make a
that's the
decision.
important thing with transitions and the cycle.
Yeah,
that you're talking
and
about.
there are a lot. We meet people that come to our program who are in that sort of turmoil of not quite making a decision because they can't find the perfect answer. Oh, I'm not quite sure if I want to do that, or I want to do this, or I want to do that. So they end up in this sort of
or the what
whirlwind.
if. Yeah,
the what
they go,
if.
what if this happens, or what if I take action and it all fails, or
The problem there is you never get associated enough to the experience to know whether you're going to like it.
Yeah.
A lot of people ask me, how did you get into this work? And they've toyed with the idea. And I said, look, go and do it.
Yeah.
Don't just, you're sitting on the sidelines, know and feel what it's like to go and speak in front of an audience, or design a program, or go and win work. Go and do it. Then decide whether or not, you'll soon very quickly work out whether it's something you really enjoy.
I've got a friend of mine who just recently been on holiday. She had a complete career change, in her late 40s. And she was in a role that, it gave her lots of anxiety. It was lots of pressure, and she just wasn't enjoying it. And she started volunteering in A&E at her local hospital. I mean, completely different environment to where she was at. And now, she really, really enjoyed it. She then applied for a role as a healthcare assistant, is now training to be a nurse.
There you go.
Can happen at any time. And she said to me the other day, I finally found the thing that I'm good at and I'm passionate about.
Brilliant.
And it just fills you with joy when you hear stories
totally
like that.
I mean, one of the things that I think motivates us to do this work that we do and the programs we do, because if you can help somebody get on track, do something that they really love and they enjoy, it brings them so much happiness that happiness then is contagious to everyone around them. So, it's a positive thing. So the second, that's the map one. The map two is doing a little bit of thinking about what really drives your internal happiness, and that is your values. What do you value? What do you place a high value on? What are the things? And these include, I'm not just necessarily talking about things like integrity and honesty and truthfulness,
See, they're more behavioural type values,
well, they were to me they are like principles of life. They are iron. It doesn't matter who you are, what you do, they apply to everybody.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily think they necessarily, whilst obviously things like honesty and integrity and fairness, things like that, of course they're absolutely essential and important to living a good life.
Yeah.
they're not necessarily the source of happiness. So when I talk about value, because otherwise you're going to end up writing a list of values the same as everyone else, because most people will write down those types of things. So I'm really saying, well, what are the motivating values you have? Is it, you mentioned doing creativity earlier on. For me, likewise, creativity for sure, autonomy, freedom to do what I want to do. I've always enjoyed being able to be my own boss. That's something that's important to me.
Learning, discovering.
Learning's very high on my list, and variety of work. If I find myself doing the same thing over and over again, the same kind of work, it doesn't suit me. I don't feel motivated by that. So understanding, it could be a feeling of service to others, helping others.
That's an important point, actually, because I was just thinking, the context of our conversation feels quite worky, but, you can find purpose in your retirement. You can find purpose if you're a stay-at-home mum. It doesn't have to be in a work context. The important thing is to do these reflections and organise your life and find the opportunities that help serve you. And
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of those transitions again. My wife, Fiona, sort of moved to a sort of semi-retirement type role. And she definitely went through, when she came out of sort of corporate life, she definitely went through a sort of stage of feeling slightly unsettled.
Yes.
And, it's not a question of having to, it's just deciding what is it in this next chapter that you want to have. So those values are really, really important to discover what they are. Some of them will remain the same for life. The things like family will often stay the same, obviously, for life. But other things, like you could be highly motivated by money or achievement or success in your 20s and 30s, maybe your 40s, and then maybe that changes. Maybe you've got enough money, you've achieved what you want to achieve, and now you want to do something which is different. So that's why I think these motivating values are quite important to think about those. So just a little exercise to do, by the way, if you're struggling with this at all, rather than just sort of printing off a list of values and circling a few off the web. Do a little closed eye exercise. Close your eyes and think back to a time in the last few months where you felt really great doing something you really enjoy. And then think about what was important to you about that. What was it? What was the feeling you were getting? What was important to you? And that's a good way. And do that 2 or 3 times, and you'll very quickly discover where those values, you'll start to see the same things appearing. Oh, look, it's really, for me, it's definitely when I'm doing something and I'm creative, or I'm left on my own devices, or I'm working with others. So get yourself a list of important values.
So we've got map 1 is the TAP, talents, achievements and passions. Map 2 is the values. Where do we go next on our little
this
journey?
is where we get closer now to defining your purpose.
And so what is a purpose in a nutshell?
In a nutshell, it is something that I make the distinction between maybe to say what is not, because there's often a bit of a confusion when we talk about vision and purpose. A vision or a mission for me is something that is you're going after. I've got a mountain in front of me. I'm trying to get to the top of the mountain. Values.
So it might be a position in an organisation, or something that you want to attain.
Yeah, and you can see it. It's tangible. It's focused. You could possibly timeline it. Whereas a purpose is your reason for being. It's the why behind the what. If the mountain is the what, the purpose is the why do you want to go up there. So I wanted to build a training company. I wanted to have my own training company and development company, consultancy. But what enabled me to get there was my passion and love for learning, teaching, helping, coaching, because I'm truly motivated by inspiring, helping others to use their God-given talents and goals to live a happy, more fulfilled, purposeful life.
Yeah.
And whilst for some people that must sound a little bit cheesy or, but for me, it doesn't really matter, right? For others, it doesn't matter. I know
it's what fuels you.
Yes, it's what fuels me. I don't need someone to keep motivating me every day to go a further step up that mountain, because the purpose, which is like the North Star, which is shining in the distance, I'm never ever going to get there in a lifetime. But it's there to fuel a lifetime. And that's the real difference between a mission or vision and a purpose. So if you combine these things together, if you combined what you love, your strengths, your values, you will start to discover your purpose. Actually, a great little book that will really help any listener wanting to uncover their purpose is to read a little book called Ikigai. Ikigai is a Japanese concept.
Yep.
Think about it as your raison d'etre, your reason for being.
Yeah.
And it describes the concept. It talks about, some of the happiest people on earth. In fact, some of the oldest, happiest people on earth. There's a special place in Japan where people live well beyond the average lifespan.
Yeah.
Many people in that village, in that area, live 90, 100, over 100, 110. And one of the core things at the heart of these people is that they are living on purpose.
Yeah.
So very, very inspiring book. They use the sort of Venn diagram of, what you love, what the world needs, what you can be paid for, and what are you good at, which combines your passion, vision, vocation, and profession.
Yeah.
So it's a great little book, and it will definitely help you on your way.
And a nice one to gift to other people as well. Once you've read it.
So that's the next map is, and by the way, don't be in a rush. I often get feedback from people. I've written it down. It doesn't feel quite right. Well, it's okay. Let's not worry about getting something beautifully described. What you've got to think about is when you read those words, do you feel congruent?
Yeah.
When you read it out loud, when you say it, when you talk to someone about it, does it feel congruent? Or do you feel like, am I kind of BSing myself a bit here?
Yeah.
In order to get the job done. So, yeah.
So purpose in a nutshell is the why behind what you want to achieve. How does someone balance pursuing their purpose whilst doing the day-to-day? Because sometimes those two things don't...
It can be at odds with each other. I always describe I use the word ecology. Is it ecologically sound? Somebody who has a family with a young family with under 4 children under 5.
Scary thought.
Probably not the best time for either of those partners to be starting a business. One partner is going to be difficult to look after all those children. So it's not a kind of ecologically sound plan. So making sure that all the parts fit together. Can I serve all the people I need to serve? Can I be a good father, a mother, husband, wife, partner? Can I stay healthy at the same time as pursuing these other goals and dreams? Now, it's a decision. We often have this discussion about, often the phrase is brought up as work-life balance, which is a bit of a myth, really. There's no such thing. I haven't met the person yet whose life is like what I would call balanced. The seesaw is always it's always balanced one way or the other, but that's just a life. So it's more about life choice rather than life balance. I remember I was a classic sort of 25-year-old young male, interested in money, having a good social life, just entertaining, having fun. But it was just all about money. He was chasing success at the time. Did it matter? No, not particularly. Later on in my 20s and 30s, not having children, completely different. So the balance changes. So it's just making choices that are congruent with the things all the people you're trying to fit in with your life at the time.
I mean, for me as well, when I was younger, in my early days at Ernst & Young, my work and my social circle was one and the same, and I used to work really long hours and then socialise for really long hours with those work friends. And then, you start having children and, focus totally changed and don't think I've actually worked a full week since.
There you go.
Well,
and good for you.
I mean,
well,
that
is actually a very great example, because you've always been, you have, we've had many conversations about this, and you have, and quite rightly, prioritised your time, and you've got some non-negotiables around how many days, weeks, hours you're going to work, and you've been very, very consistent with that.
But you know what that allows you to do as well? Once you identify, what the ideal situation looks like and how all those parts can work ecologically together, it really focuses the time. So, I focus on my work purpose and the work we do together for 3 days a week, but in that time I'm so focused and I get a lot of stuff done. And then it enables me to focus in my purpose outside of this, which is to be a average mother.
So that's that's the answer to the question. Really, is about it's prioritising. The late Stephen Covey was used as a lovely little metaphor of the big rocks.
Yes.
You would have a jar, and you would have rocks, pebbles, representing the big things that are important to you. And then you would have this rice or sand. And the metaphor is that if you put the sand in first, you can't get all the rocks in. But if you put the rocks in first, the sand, the small stuff, the less important stuff fits around the big rocks. So decide what your big rocks are first.
Yeah.
And that's why the values and the purpose is really important, because you then start making decisions from an inner compass. And it's then very easy to start saying no to things that are less important, because you've got a bigger burning yes inside.
And that's another thing that we do in the programme, isn't it? Which is a reflection on how you spend your time and what we call the wheel of life. And again, we'll put reference to that in the show notes. But it basically looks at the different areas of your life, how you are currently spending them. And then later on in Vision Power, we look at how you want to be spending them and where you might want to increase your focus.
Yeah, it's a great exercise to get a snapshot of a quick audit of where you're at this time, and to show the progress you're making, of course.
Yeah. Okay, so obviously we don't have time to cover all of the maps that you described earlier on, but we'll just touch on a few more and then go into the final one in more detail.
Yeah. So map 4 is about having what we call, creating your vision, or big, hairy, audacious vision. And that is just think about it as what's your big, like I used the mountain metaphor earlier on. What's the mountain that's in front of you? And allow yourself just to dream a bit on that.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be something within your instant reach. And that doesn't mean to say that you shouldn't write it down. It should feel a little bit exciting, a little bit exhilarating, a little bit scary at the same time. But give it some thought. What would be that goal? Probably 2, maybe 3 years out from where you are at the moment. That I would think would be about the right time.
And so would you have a medium-term goal and then a longer-term goal, or just focus on the...
I think for the simplicity on this podcast, I would just there's a lot more we could say about this, as we said, but so let's just stick to trying to think about what's the big goal. It's got, big, hairy, audacious vision. The name, there's a suggestion, a hint in the name there. All right. It's big and hairy. It's audacious. Be bold. The whole idea here is to move yourself beyond where you are, wherever that is for you. If you want to break it down short, you can do that. But mountains have base camps. to get up. So
Yeah.
yes, you can use that. The fifth map is around distributing your time on purpose. So when, just very briefly here, think about the hats you wear over the course of a week. And by giving focus to each of those hats that you wear, so you might have a hat as a parent, you might have as a hat as a partner, there might be a hat for your health and well-being, it might be career, it could be something of service. So think about what are the hats you wear every week, and then start thinking about how do you want to distribute your time. Again, we could spend a lot of time on this, talking about this. We don't have the time to do, but a very simple way of thinking about it is if you think about sort of 10 hours a day, roughly getting ready for bed, sleeping and getting up.
Yeah.
There's a 10 hours. So you take the 10 hours away from your roughly 168 hours in a week, you roughly have got 100 units of energy.
Yeah.
So in other words, how do you want to distribute these 100 units of energy? Are you going to spend 50% of your waking hours working? Is it 60? Is it 70%? You might be quite shocked when you do a little audit here.
So you could actually visualize it on like a pie chart.
On a pie graph. It's a really easy thing to do. So how are you distributing your time now? How do you want to distribute your time in the future? So think about it like that, 100 units of energy. The next one is think about goals.
This tends to be the one that people jump to, isn't it?
Well, the thing is that people, actually what people tend to do, they live their life by a to-do list.
Yeah.
Right? They get up each morning or they do it the night before and they write a to-do list. But what's the to-do list? Does the to-do list attach itself to a purpose?
Yeah. What's it pursuing?
And that's
Just
the whole
ticking
thing.
off the to-do
We're
list or something
completely the
higher?
other way around. We start with purpose on one end and you finish with a to-do list at the other. But everything on that to-do list should have something to do with you living your life on purpose.
Yeah.
That's an inverted
This
model.
is about aligning each of these things.
So start using the kind of hats, if you like, these different roles that you occupy your time every week. Start with writing some goals, and what we suggest that people do is we give them the 50 goal challenge, and that might seem a lot, but it's actually not a lot if you break it down into the following categories. What we call it be, do, have.
Yeah.
Being or be is about your character, if you like. I want to be more patient. I want to be kinder. I want to be more compassionate. I want to be more empathic. I want to be a better listener. So it's things to do with your character. Do is things, as the name suggests. What do you actually want to do? What activities do you want to do? From learning French to climbing a mountain to sport activities, maybe something for the soul.
Starting a business,
etc. So it's a doing thing, and the whole list of different things you can come up with for that. What is it you do at the moment? What do you do with your spare time? What do you want to do at work? Right. So the doing things, and then finally have, which is more to do with accomplishments, which is where people tend to go with goals. Big house on the hill, super duper job. Want to earn £1 million a year or something ridiculous, right? And
again, this is one to do the ecology check around where the motivation comes from as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is it truly something that motivates you?
Yeah.
Internally.
So it's a whilst the sort of have could be to do with holidays and things that make you, bring you joy that you enjoy doing. Have is the end product, the accomplishment.
It might be the working pattern. It might be have 2 days, working and 3 days not.
Yeah,
or,
indeed.
or whatever.
Absolutely. And don't get too hooked up on which goes where. Just get creative. Get a blank sheet of paper and get that pen working and write that shopping list out for your life.
Yeah.
And when I'm actually doing this exercise with people, I give them a forced time. So you can write it down, you can have it. Right, go. You've got 10 minutes. A good way of thinking about this is when we often say to ourselves, we really should do this more often.
Yeah.
We should make more time to that. That was really good fun. What are those things? Write them down, journal them. You will very, very quickly, particularly if you start thinking under each of those roles.
And once you start going, they just tend to come out of the pen, don't they?
Yeah, well, if you think about them under the
momentum.
roles, be do have for each of those roles.
Yeah.
Who do I want to be as a parent? Who do I want to be as a partner, as a lover, as a, in my work capacity? Be do have under those roles, you'll very, very quickly get to 50. Now, it might seem a lot. You can all, you then take those 15, you can prioritize on which one do you really want to focus on.
Yeah.
But it's not important that yes, of course, if you've got a specific goal you want to go for, and, I'm absolutely about helping clients get very focused on one or two things at a time. But this is like, I found I was introduced to this exercise of goal setting back in my 20s. I was a bit at conference, this motivational speaker got up and he said I hadn't thought about the idea of writing goals before. But he said, he really sold it well. If you have a goal, you instigate the law of attraction, which is absolutely true. You attract those things that you think about and you start to resonate.
Yeah, your energy flows in the
energy
direction.
flows, exactly in that direction. And you meet those people and circumstances will help you get there. So there's something quite powerful about writing goals. And by the way, you'll literally join the 5% club because 95% of people, probably more, do not have written goals in any shape or form. Yes, they've got them for their business likely to give them KPIs and goals to achieve at work. But I'm talking about for you in your life. So it might seem a bit silly, it might seem a bit weird, but I promise you, I have my own personal experience of doing this. I recently, I've been able to tidy up in my office and I come across some lists of goals.
Did you achieve them?
Well, and that's the point. That's the point. It's happened to me over and over again. In fact, I was actually looking at some early business goals when we'd written down the sort of revenue goals that we wanted to get to. And we certainly got there.
Yeah.
And every time we've done that, we've achieved them or exceeded them. So, I'm a big subscriber to the idea of having written goals.
Absolutely, me too. And it just helps you focus your attention and, there's loads of things you could be doing but this really focuses your attention and makes efficient use of your time.
And remember, the context for the goals has come from the purpose, the values, or should I say you're utilising your talents, accomplishments, passions, making use of your values, living your purpose, achieving your vision, thinking about those different roles, and then you end up with a list of goals. That's why the goals then become far more meaningful.
Yeah.
I remember every year I used to write down learn to speak French. And every year, I get to the end of the year, I hadn't done a single lesson.
Mine's piano. I will do it one day.
Then I realised I've actually absolutely got no intention at all of ever wanting to speak French. I've got no motivation to do it at all. So I'll just use my, basic school
AI,
I learned to...
AI will help you with that.
Yeah,
you don't
exactly.
even need to speak French anymore,
I learned at school, that will do for me. And then finally, guess what the last map is? Oh, yes, it's that all-in-powerful to-do list.
You've got to actually take some action.
Unfortunately.
It would be nice if just you can manifest these things without taking action, but sadly, not going to happen.
And the to-do list, therefore, should be meaningful. When those actions that you're taking, and we can talk on another podcast about productivity, what do you do first, what do you prioritize? Because if that to-do list is just purely in that urgent quadrant, urgent, you're not actually working on quadrant 2.
Yeah.
And quadrant 2 are those things that are important but not urgent.
The Stephen
and
Covey
those are the things.
model.
Yeah, Eisenhower, I think, is the original author of that. But those quadrant 2 activities are the ones that actually link back to your purpose. So we can talk about that on another episode, another time.
So we've covered a lot of ground here, and there's loads of useful tips that people can use. If someone was to come to you and, what's the first thing that people should do? What's the first quick action that people can take today to start working on their purpose?
I personally would get yourself a journal.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to have journal on the front. Any notebook will do. I haven't been able to find a journal yet. Well, don't worry about it. Just get a blank notepad. But don't confuse this with other notepads you have.
Yeah.
Good old-fashioned pen and paper.
Yeah.
There's something about writing things down. I try and journal every day.
Mm-hmm.
I find the process very, very powerful because a little bit of time, 5 minutes thinking about where you want to get to in life is not a bad investment. So I would get a journal and I would just start journaling and start writing down. Where do I feel at my happiest? Where do I feel? What drains me? What excites me? And just start there. Start with that, and then and then follow those. Well, you use the toolkit we're going to provide you with.
Yeah.
And of course, if you need further help, we're here to help. We've got a program that will help you. But that's where I would start.
I think that's good advice.
Just don't make this a big thing. Don't make it such a mammoth task that you never get started on it.
Just start putting your energy in the direction of getting clearer on these things.
Just start being intentional. We talk about, first of all, set your intentions. Secondly, back it up with some energy. Do something. Act on it. And then you start to manifest it.
Yeah.
In fact, Neil Pasricha's book, The Happiness Equation, he says that we often say it's easier said than done, but actually it's easier done than said. In other words, what he's saying is we often have things that we want to do, but because we don't feel we've got the capability to do it, it stops us from taking action. He says it's much easier to act your way into a new way of thinking rather than think yourself into a new way of acting. Yeah. In other words, the doing, once you do it, you because you're now doing it and you're stepped in, you feel I'm like really enjoying this. This is great, right? And you'll still work out what you need to learn or what you need to improve on.
Exactly. And whether you like it.
Yeah, absolutely, whether you like it or not.
It's the difference between the theory and the practice, isn't it? You're not going to...
So the final message here is, yes, you've got to take some action. So don't wait for everything to be perfect. Don't wait to know how to do everything. Just go do.
Yeah.
And when you do, you'll feel great.
Time is ticking. Time to be happy.
Yeah, absolutely. So how many weeks you got left, did you say?
Oh, just more. I've actually got more than you.
That's the important thing. Right.
You better get cracking.
Yeah, I better get, absolutely. I'm obviously on Saturday morning, so I've only one day to go.
Sunday tomorrow.
Well, actually, I mean, that is a real truth, actually, because
puts the mirror right up there, straight in front of you, doesn't it?
I mean, it's the whole classic thing, isn't it? When you start thinking actually how
many... that is only to 70, and obviously you're going to live to 100.
Clearly, absolutely. So look, our big wish for everybody listening today is to take action on some of these things. Yeah. It truly will bring you where we started off, more happiness. And ultimately, what does everybody want in life? They want more happiness.
Looking ahead to our next podcast, what are we going to be talking about?
Well, we're going to be doing something which is actually very pertinent to today's session, and that is about cultivating great habits.
Oh, I look forward to that one. I've got many I need to change.
Or, as you say, getting rid of old habits. I often get asked this question. I get distracted. I start something. I don't stay on track. How do I get myself to cultivate a new habit so that it brings me a new set of results? Remembering that we behave ourselves into the results we get in our lives. Yeah. Our lives are perfectly aligned with who we are. We have ourselves to blame. So the fact is we created it, we can create a new one. And we can create it by cultivating new habits. So looking forward to that session.
And definitely sounds like it's not one to miss.
As always, if you found something interesting in this episode, please do share with other people. The gift of sharing will always come back to you. So please do share with other people. And we're always interested in how we can make these podcasts even better, what you found useful. So please do leave us some comments as well.
Yeah, we appreciate it. And remember to use the PDFs and the links that are available in the show notes to help you do some work on everything we've talked about today.
We look forward to seeing you next week's episode.
Goodbye.
Goodbye for now.